So the title of the article we're talking today is Taking a Pass on Assessment Grades for a Career-Focused Tour of the Middle East. The authors are Drs. Matt Hardy and Sally Totman. Welcome, Matt.
Well, although the article title mentions the Middle East, and indeed this is about a trip to the Middle East, I guess this article is of interest to a broader community who might be interested in non-traditional grading arrangements for overseas faculty-led study tours. In the sense that this the tour that we do uses a zero credit grading system. So people who are interested in that concept. Also, I guess more broadly, anybody who might be sensitive to the idea that humanities and social sciences subjects don't prepare graduates to be job ready with proper job skills. We're looking at that a lot in this article as well, because really the whole purpose of the trip is to get people more focused on their career for after university.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sure. So we're looking at zero credit assessment, where students don't get a numerical grade, they just get a pass-fail grade for their participation in this trip and the assignments that they do. And when we talk about pedagogy on the study tour that we lead, we're not necessarily looking at imparting subject knowledge or discipline-specific knowledge or facts or anything like that. What we're really trying to do is get people to think about what their career paths might be and showcase to them different ways that they might use the skills that they have learnt during the whole course of their degree. And therefore, that's the pedagogical aim that we're going for. And we've structured the assessment because what we're trying to do is teach, I guess, self-realization in terms of career aspirations for the students, and that's the thinking behind the zero credit point arrangement. We do have to have assessment as part of this tour, and definitely the tour is better off for having to have assessment. But the pedagogy is aimed at the future rather than learning discipline-specific knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Student response is that generally students are saying, thank you for allowing me to write about my reflections and write about my experiences without the need, I guess, to be defensive against a rubric where I felt I had to tick certain boxes in a rubric in order to get, an extra 10% of the marks. Students in their responses said, I was able to be much more vulnerable and much more open in my thoughts and my feelings about myself and my career than if I was trying to get 75 instead of 65%.
Work.
Look, like I said before, I think that idea that pass-fail assessment can work well, but it does take some preparation and some trust between institution, student, and teacher. I think for the whole program, in a way, given that in this COVID world, lots of universities are having to compete very much harder for student numbers than they used to. Preparing graduates for life after university, particularly in the humanities and social sciences disciplines, is just as important as subject knowledge. And so if you can establish some sort of study abroad program that does focus well on getting students to think about what they'd like to do after university, that is an invaluable contribution to their whole degree. And we need to think a little bit more about that, 2021 and beyond.
Sure.
It's significant for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because the actual program, that study tour of the Middle East with a kind of mixture of career and subject knowledge is a fairly, I won't say unique because that's a dangerous word to say, but it's an unusual one. I haven't found many similar programs in the literature. It's also because this program is not about cultural competence or getting students to experience a foreign culture, which a lot of faculty-led tours are. This program is really about building a bridge between university and career. And particularly so because we found a lot of students who expressed career ambitions to us in different directions really had no idea what those careers entailed, and they certainly hadn't met practitioners of those careers. So when we take them to the Middle East and take them and they speak to an ambassador or they speak to an NGO caseworker or something like that, it's really their first experience in those career avenues that they thought they might like to do. So it's significant because the program's quite interesting, and that's detailed very well in the article. And I think the other significance is that students are willing to be more vulnerable and more honest in a non-credit point arrangement when it comes to grading. And if you set that up well, you can really get students to reflect much more deeply than if they're just gaming a room.